Welcome to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. I'm Pete Mezzetti. My guest this evening is photojournalist Peter Hvizdak. Peter, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me.
How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming down. Long time no see. We've talked about this for months, and it finally came to fruition.
Yeah, there were some bumps in the road.
There were some bumps in the road.
But you made it work.
I did. Well, thanks for coming down. So, Peter, tell us a little bit about your photojournalistic career.
You have like 24 hours,
yeah,
like 40
pretty
hours
much.
maybe, and
go for it.
Once you get me on a roll, you got to be careful. Because
there you go. Well,
stop.
I can do that.
Well, I think it all started with this camera.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's a Brownie camera that I recently had to go through a lot of my mother's things because she passed. She died of COVID a year ago.
Oh boy.
And I went through all the photographs that she had sitting around and noticed that this camera was over my neck at different points in grammar school and up through 5th and 6th grade, and then the rest was history. So what else do you want to know? What happened was sometime in college, actually started in high school. I had a class where it was an advanced English literature class, and I did a photo essay of a poem of Lord Byron's called Darkness, Darkness.
Okay.
And I actually got a halfway decent grade on it. So I went to college, and long story short, I was taking a graduate class, and my background, most of my family still lived in Czechoslovakia at the time, which was still behind what we call the Iron Curtain.
Yeah.
And it was part of the Soviet bloc, Czechoslovakia, and my family was from Slovakia. So I had a real deep interest in, I could speak the language at the time, and I had a deep interest in Eastern European affairs. So that's what the graduate course was about, Eastern European affairs, Russian area studies, and I had been to Slovakia a number of times, which is in middle of Europe, right next to Austria.
Sure.
Vienna, excuse me. Yep. And I remember being in Leningrad, what is today St. Petersburg, and making some photographs, and also making some photographs in Poland. And I made photographs that I thought were special, and I still remember the photographs. And I said, I really like doing this. I bought a used Nikon F camera, and had 2 lenses, and that's what I took with me on my trip. And I had other cameras in the past, but this camera was beat up, but it worked, and I made some photographs that caught the attention of some people, and I ended up as a student being hired as a student employee at Southern Connecticut State University and worked for their public affairs department, which I did for 2 years, and got paid for it. And then I got a job working for a freelance photographer right after that, which kind of helped me develop ways of connecting with people, because I was, for the most part, not shy, but and I think that was an important lesson to be learned, because being a photojournalist, you have to engage.
Absolutely.
So I was very attracted to the idea of the photo essay and doing photo stories and what people call today street photography, photojournalism, and through, unbeknownst to me, I had some folks that were looking out after me, and told folks at the New Haven Register about me, and I got a phone call from them, and the rest is history. There was a span in between in my career at the Register. I guess it was early on, where for approximately a year and a half I got a phone call from United Technologies and Sikorsky Aircraft, because they had heard about me by and by and wanted to hire me. And because of the photojournalism skills in their photography department, which had a dedicated film department and still, and it was wrapped up into one. So I worked there for a year and a half, traveled a little bit with them, enough to make it interesting around the country, and wanted to get back into newspapering because I felt uncomfortable in that environment because there was it didn't quite fit my personality. I like the freedom of working in photojournalism and the idea of newspapers. The idea of newspapers now are, it's pretty much gone, but back then, during that whole career, I was really blessed to have a job that I've actually loved my whole entire working career.
How long were you with the Register?
Oh goodness gracious. With the Register?
Yeah.
I think making a living at it, close to 50 years.
Okay.
And at the Register, I'd say a good 47 years.
Oh, wow.
So it was the Journal Courier and the Register.
Yes, that's right.
Because the morning paper at the time was the Journal Courier, which was still affiliated with the New Haven Register and Jackson newspapers and the Jackson family, when most newspapers in the country were family owned.
That's right.
And now it's now newspapers are corporate, by and large corporate entities.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I understand we're going to take a look at some photos.
Sure, let's do that.
Let's take a look at some pictures.
Yeah.
Chris, now what is this photo? Can you explain this?
He's I can't think of his name, but he was local, who also did really well nationally, and I can't think of his name, but it was at Cafe 9 in New Haven. And, blues is part of the heritage of this country, the heritage of African Americans, phenomenal music. And also we had a feature section that was pretty dynamic in terms of both layouts and usage of photographs. So I lit it, and that's one of the things I really got into was lighting my photographs, lighting my portrait photographs. And so being able to card all these lights in, and that you get that blue effect feeling, the blues and the red, because there's an edge, some sort of a sexual bad guy. There's a whole thing about the blues that the red signifies, and he was just a great looking character, and really played the guitar well and sang well. He the famous blues player, I forget his name off the top of my head, that thing about the crossroads. And this guy was trying to, this blues player was trying to make it big, and he was at the crossroads and connected with Satan. Satan said, "I'll make you a rich man if you follow me." So he had a choice between where he was going to go, and he chose the path that Satan wanted him to. So that red in back there had that kind of a feeling for me.
Okay. And should we take a look at another picture, Chris?
Okay, so, and as you've seen a lot of things in my collection of photographs that I've made, and this one is just an everyday photograph. And whenever it snowed or the weather was bad, whether it be a tornado or hurricanes, we didn't stay home. We went out and made photographs. And this was like a simple snowstorm. And I mean, just look at it. It has a feeling to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Walking in the snow, pushing a cart, which is always an issue for somebody, kind of hard, and someone who may be elderly who has some sort of an issue with the back. And it just was one of these photographs they used to fill space and considered a throwaway by the editors.
Right.
What caught you about that photograph?
What caught me? I was going to say, what caught me about that photograph is just the way that the photograph looks, and it basically tells a story of, yes, it snowed, but how hard it is to push the cart.
And it can be a struggle.
In the inclement weather.
It can be a struggle for some people. What makes it too is that you have a lot of graphic things going on.
Oh, absolutely.
The lines go in the back with where the tires went on the road, and so on and so forth. So there's little minutia that makes a photograph good. And got the main subject, and there's other things that contribute to that.
Absolutely. Next photo, Chris. Telephone.
Yeah, and it's in another country.
Yes.
And that particular phone booth. And it was a grab shot. I forget what country I was in, but I really do forget what country it was in, but I just saw it happening, and I picked up my camera and barely had any time to focus because it was a quick kiss, and I saw it coming, and I had the camera, and I just picked it up and made the shot. So I guess that's what people call a snapshot.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And next photo, Chris. Aha.
Okay, so I photographed every president, starting with and including Jerry Ford, and I didn't photograph Jimmy Carter because I was working at Sikorsky Aircraft at the time.
Okay.
And every other president since. I did not do Obama. I did Michelle.
Right.
But I had never...
You didn't do him.
Yeah, it didn't happen. So, and I photographed Biden 1 million times,
Yeah.
and Kamala Harris at least once. But anyway, that being said, he was getting ready to leave. This was in Ansonia.
Okay.
The helicopter, Marine One, was on a field, and I had a way of getting up close and personal with all the presidents. And when the opportunity arose, and this just happened to be a good moment. And one thing that makes me laugh is the Secret Service guys.
Yeah, right.
But they knew who I was,
Yeah.
so. And it's always a tussle and trying to be, trying to not get in other people's way to see him. So you have to work your way into a situation where you're able to make a photograph like that.
Okay. I believe we're going to take a look at one more, then we're going to go to a break, but then we'll come
Sure,
back and look at more.
absolutely.
Here we go.
Shane Leno, you like this photograph?
I actually do like this photograph.
Well, why do you like it?
I like the photograph. I like this particular photograph because just of the way that he looks, that he's animated.
Yeah. Now, he was not wealthy at the time. He was, he was just coming up. He was struggling. He was playing second fiddle, to other acts. And I think he was in Wallingford. And what's the name of the place up in Wallingford? It isn't the way it is today. There was a venue there.
Okay.
And now it's a big venue. But it
was it the Oakdale?
Yeah, it was at the Oakdale. Good. And I'll tell you, this is a testament to reporters and the writers that I work with, who sometimes as photographers we set up the assignments on some of them, but most of our assignments came from reporters and editors, right?
Absolutely.
So there was one of the finest writers, and I worked with a number of really great writers, and his name was Frank Rizzo, and he left us. He worked for the Hartford Courant. He's still out there working and freelancing, but doing a wonderful job. He does some stuff for Connecticut Magazine too, and he set up all these great stories on these up-and-coming artists who became superstars, and I had the opportunity to photograph many of them.
Really?
As some of the other photographers I did also. So I just told him to jump up in the air. I'm looking for a good photograph, and the background is awful. We're in his motel room,
Right.
So you got to figure out a way on the spot to, look at the background. That's the sky.
Exactly.
And so you needed a clean background. He just was a personality. I needed to show who he was, and he actually smoked pipes at the time.
Really?
Yeah. And I think that's a pipe. Yeah. And
that's right.
he just did his thing. He was, we walked in, he looked like this in his motel room, and he was sitting in the chair, and it was a terrible environment. So I tried to get him out of that environment and talk to him and engage with him, and that's in the old days of black and white, when we only shot black and white film.
Exactly.
For the most part, and then we finally came into an era where we did shoot color. But most of the people I photographed who were personalities were really wonderful and easy.
Oh, were they?
And easy, yep.
Peter, would you mind sticking around for another segment?
Nope, not at all.
All right, we'll be right back.
Smart TVs and streaming services have taken over the television industry. VSC TV is proud to announce our presence on Apple TV and Roku to make watching your favorite shows even easier. You can access this service by downloading the Cablecast ScreenWeave app. Then choose Valley Shore Community TV from the list of channels. Select VSC TV Live to watch our channel in full HD. Or pick a show from our on-demand video library. VSC TV is your local Connecticut Midshore Valley digital connection.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. I'm Pete Mezzetti, sitting here with photojournalist Peter Hvizdak. Peter, welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks for sticking around. So I believe we have some more photos we're going to take a look at and talk about. So Chris, if you please. Aha. Speaking of
Right.
more
Right.
famous faces.
Yeah. Clinton versus Trump.
Oh, wow.
What do you want to know? Except for the fact that she had handlers, and every time I photographed Hillary Clinton, it was different than other other political figures.
Because you had to deal with her handlers.
Who were on the national stage. Yeah, they were really super tight.
Oh, really?
The number of occasions I had to photograph her in different situations. So yeah. And you try and make something out of nothing. That's
right.
pretty much what my job was.
Absolutely.
Like Jay Leno and using the lighting, let's say on that blues player, it's turning something into nothing. So she was very popular.
Right.
And with her supporters, extremely popular. And I believe she still is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And whether you like her or not, people like her or not, she does attract a crowd, and
absolutely.
They want to shoot photographs and selfies with them. And she always did this. The number of times I photographed her, she would do selfies, and also you'll see later Bill Clinton doing the same thing.
I was going to say, I believe that's the next photo we're going to take a look at. There you go.
Yeah, so I forget where this is. I think this may have been in New Haven at possibly Wilbercross High School, and he had a rally there to support his wife during her last campaign against Trump. And he is much different than his wife in terms of how he engages with the crowd. He comes across as real.
Yeah.
I remember photographing him during his first term, and he has this thing, and he's not afraid to come up close and personal, and he's loosey-goosey, and
absolutely.
So that kind of. Again, you had to turn something into nothing, because a lot of these things start looking the same, and they're there to engage with the crowd. So I'm glad. Sometimes I'm very lucky to get a halfway decent photograph out of something like that.
Exactly. I believe we're going to take a look at the next picture.
Yeah, for me, this is significant. So this is when we were still shooting film, color film. This is color negative film.
Mm-hmm.
This is when Haiti was in a really bad place. There was the country was overthrown by General Cedras, if I recall correctly, and President Aristide, the duly elected president of Haiti, was kicked out, and Clinton decided to send in our troops. I mean, the streets were pretty ugly. They would throw tires full of gasoline on people and light them up on fire and junk like that. And I happened to be in Cité Soleil walking around, and some of the folks I was with didn't know where I was, and I heard their voices from a distance when they were getting ready to leave.
Yeah.
We were there on some specific stories that had to connect with Connecticut and the whole international story of what was going on in Haiti. And this was the first photograph I filed. We did stories every day.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And we were down there for a while, and that was the first, and they ran the photographs and stories every day on page one that we would file, the reporter and I.
Right.
And I worked with some AP guys, and we processed film in toilet in a hotel, one of the hotels that had one of the few international telephone lines going out, because you had to use a telephone line to connect to the internet.
That's right.
Or connect to AP, where it would take a while. It's not instantaneous like it is today. So we only got one. I was only able to get one photo out that day, and that was the photograph. And it just shows to me, you know, you have this kid holding on to a white doll that she found in the trash. The living situation was abysmal. I mean, it was just brutal. And that's a sewer, right? I mean, that's where people.
Yeah.
That's the latrine. That's where people dumped their waste. That's where they went to the bathroom.
Oh, good.
And that's where people lived.
Yeah.
And that was their kids' playground. So, Cité Soleil, and that photograph was dramatic. And I waited till the guy was in the background of the picture because it added to the depth of it. And it wasn't exactly a storytelling photograph that talked about what was going on in the country at the time, but these people are impacted by the violence that was happening there. So, and here's this innocent kid.
Right.
So that to me was, and it impacted me emotionally. So that's a big deal for me, that photograph, because the image still strikes me and makes me feel certain things.
Absolutely. I believe we're going to take a look at the next photo, Chris. Yep. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
There he is. Okay. Dr. Henry Lee.
Absolutely.
And again, trying to turn nothing into something.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and it's so easy to go in there and get in and out and move on to the next thing, because sometimes we had 2, 3, 4 assignments a day, had to drive to where we're going, make the photograph, and then at the end of the day, put it all together so the editors could put it in the paper, however it was going to be used.
Exactly.
And so I also, besides big lighting that I did sometimes when I carried, you know, big cases of lights to light up something, I would carry a small lighting gear that consisted of 3 to 4, you know, smaller lights, and I used radio remotes where I had them on light stands. I had small light stands all over the place, just like you guys have this studio lit, and I would light it in a specific way, and that's what the resulting photograph. And every time I photographed him in terms of making a portrait, especially when I was the examiner, the state's medical examiner, I made a photograph where, you know, I spent a couple hours with him, if not more than 3 hours, making a photograph. This one was a lot quicker. So I found him really easy to photograph. He's definitely a personality who likes attention.
Oh, yeah.
And knows how to work a camera.
And I believe we're going to take a look at the next photo.
Yeah, COVID, feeding people on the street, homeless. This is the 180 Center in New Haven.
Okay.
180 Center of New Haven. If anybody knows it, they can look at it online on Facebook or their website. They do wonderful work for the homeless and for the most desperate in the city of New Haven.
Okay.
And they're a ministry, Christian-based ministry. Okay. And at the height of COVID, when everybody's staying inside, all the Arnie Gold and myself and the other Hearst media photographers, Hearst owning the New Haven Register today, we were out on the street working. Editors, reporters can work from home. So, and nobody knew what this COVID was all about. So Arnie and I usually came up with our own ideas how early on in COVID and how to illustrate the story that impacted our nation and the world and New Haven and the whole New Haven area.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Next photo, Chris. Yep.
Okay. So I have other photographs that riffed off of this one.
Yep.
And you wouldn't let your daughter marry this guy. So it was part of a Ku Klux Klan rally, and there was a period in Connecticut where there seemed to be a resurgence of the Ku Klux Klan and a smaller version of what it was down south.
Okay.
And it was kicking around for a while, and I photographed almost every rally, every situation the Ku Klux Klan was in, not just for the New Haven Register, but or the Journal Courier, but I had days off that were Fridays and Saturdays. So the Associated Press photographer that covered Connecticut, that was his thing. And AP was really big at the time, as was UPI. Both of them were behemoths. He hired me to cover assignments on Fridays and Saturdays. So this was on a weekend, I think, and it's a Ku Klux Klan rally. And this could have been for the Register. I shot this.
Okay.
So, but there were a lot of things that that I saw that, you know, it's Ku Klux Klan is.
Absolutely.
It is what it is. And you kind of wish they'd go into dust.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, before we got a little bit more time, but before we say goodnight, we got to do a quick shout out.
Sure.
Speaking of media.
Well, Paul Bass.
You said it, I didn't.
Paul Bass, yeah. I think the reason why I'm here is Paul Bass, and you're connected with Paul.
Absolutely, yeah.
Through your
radio show.
Your radio show.
They actually.
His HQ is, and it's all Paul Bass. So,
exactly, great
guy.
guy.
Paul Bass is terrific. I've known him and known of him since he was a Yale student.
Absolutely.
And I was working, so I got a couple of years on Paul.
There you go.
And I'm glad that he connected us, because I got a chance to get to know you better, and I'm looking forward to getting to know you even more. So
absolutely.
it's a good thing.
We'll have you on again soon.
Sounds good.
All right, we're out of time. But Peter Hvizdak, thanks for some time. We'll see you again soon.
All right, good.
On behalf of Pete Hvizdak, I'm Pete Mezzetti. Thanks. Good night. We'll see you next time.